All right, Kingdom Builders, we are here with a familiar face for me. Derek Delaney, a financial advisor. Farm D Financial Planning is the company that he started back in, when was that, Derek?
March of 2021.
March of 21. Well, this is okay. That's exciting. Because that was right when I think, yeah, we had just met when you had started that. So this is cool.
Yeah.
But first, since this is the first episode, I want to quick introduce everybody to you and kind of give us your backstory in the financial planning and just how it relates to kingdom building.
Yeah. So again, my name is Derek Delaney. As a profession, I am a certified financial planner. I also own and operate PharmD Financial Planning. I specialize in retirement and tax planning. So it's usually working with people who are right around the age of 45, 50, who are looking out ahead and go, hey, I want to retire someday. I want to make sure that my finances are aligning with those future goals. I am the person they call and hire. And with the planning process that I implement annually with those clients, we get them closer every single year to those future financial goals. So it's kind of like the typical relationship people experience with their financial advisor, but in my opinion, with my firm, it's just a little more focused and a little more proactive than what you get with the general opportunities out there with financial professionals. Um, I am a sole proprietor, and I started my firm with no financial backing or support from any large entity, which is usually unique, or which is unique in the um, financial services profession, where usually you get a financial advisor and they are hired by a giant insurance company or a giant investment company, or have a big broker dealer that they use to run their compliance department or sell financial products or whatever else. But they start their career with a big reputable name behind them that they can put right on their office door, right? I didn't do that. I created my own because I didn't like the conflict of interest of having other people or other entities in the middle of my relationship with my clients. So it took a lot of faith and belief and my abilities. And as you know, Sean, it takes a lot of faith in yourself and just blind faith that things are going to work out if you put the work in. And so far, that has been the case. So there's probably a lot more forces at work that lead to my success than just the actions I take on my own, which I think align really well with Kingdom Advisors and what you're doing here.
I love it. No, that's great. I love how you called out the faith piece there. Can you tell us a little bit about why Farm D?
Yes. So, like I talked about before, I didn't have a huge backing. I didn't have a giant insurance company or a multi conglomerate investment company behind me that I worked with. It was just me. So, I had very little brand recognition. And in order to get that flywheel going, I needed to focus my efforts and marketing and attention to a specific niche. So, I thought to myself, I'm really good at what I do, but who do I think I can be really good at doing that for? And I picked the pharmacy profession, which is where the PharmD came from. And the primary reason for me picking that profession is my wife is a pharmacist. So she graduated from pharmacy school back in 2013. So she's been practicing now for over 12 years. And I thought back in 2021, hey, I understand the opportunities, the problems, and all the financial concerns and complexities that come along with that profession, whether it's student loans in the beginning, whether it's the transition of the profession not being as profitable or sought after as it used to be. So I can use my time and talent to help those people right away and focus my message and marketing at that profession to help those people achieve their financial dreams. And I thought there's no better way to kick that off and to really prove that to be true than to name the firm PharmD Financial Planning.
No, that's awesome. Love it because if you haven't seen the other videos, Derek has been a strong advocate for RPH Ally in the past, kind of the parent company to Kingdom Builders here. And so that you will see him in his episodes on that. But in case you haven't seen that, I wanted to call that out just because I think that is a cool story in how in as a pharmacist, like I can appreciate that because we weren't taught the financials behind pretty much anything in school, right? So this is where you get out into life and you're like, wait a second, like I made this much money in this many years, but I have nothing to show for it, right? And that can happen too many times to individuals, right? So I'm really glad you're there helping out and then now giving us advice on this. So this is kind of getting into a book that I read recently, and I thought, man, I would love to have Derek on here and talk about this, because it is Think and Grow Rich. There's a lot of lessons we can take from this. But I think, it comes down to, when I read this book, Derek, I felt like it was read, or it was written like recently. Like some of those, when they're talking steel mill and all these examples are from a long time ago. But when they talk about the transition and the revolutions and things like that, it's like we are in the midst of that right now in healthcare, right? I mean, you have this AI revolution, probably even you in the financial world. It's like AI this, AI that. What are you going to do with this, right? And so I feel like it is time to where we need to do more thinking and growing rich in order to make it through to the next chapter in our lives.
Absolutely. And I think there's laws of nature that apply regardless of what time period we're in. And that is what I think has made that book that Napoleon Hill wrote so popular even today. Is that the things he talks about in that book can be applied to any time period, to any individual, because they are just the laws of nature that never go away, that are always applicable regardless of what you're doing or regardless of how advanced technology gets as well. So even if
Yeah.
we continue down this path and AI does eventually take over, principles in this book are still going to be applicable to people in their everyday life, in my opinion.
Okay. No, that's perfectly said. Let's go a little bit deeper now. Like, let's just start kind of in the beginning. Like, in their introduction, he talks about, Napoleon Hill talks about the power of thought. And I think this is good, now that you gave your backstory and that you didn't have any backing, right? I can relate to that as far as with startups. Like, you start something without a backing, there's no big name behind you. It takes a long time to kind of build that reputation, build that brand, even work out the kinks. So talk about like your power of thought in finances, and how you think that can help us in our realities where money seems to have wings.
Yeah, so it's all about every individual human being's superpower, which is their thought process, their thinking, the thinking part of the brain. Um, if conditioned correctly, I think it can open up miraculously. It can open up doors and opportunities that we're not even thinking about. Unfortunately, as people age, their thought process in conscious and subconscious mind gets filled up with a lot of what society wants us to think and believe. When really, I think as human beings, we have capacity to do so much more if we can figure out how to control our brains to allow us to believe we can do so much more. So when it came to me starting my firm, I had a belief that I was very, very good at what I did. And if you're very good at what you do and you have a long time period of when you're going to do it, to really capitalize on that value, you should do it yourself. Own it, right? Instead of allowing somebody else to um, take hold of that long-term value. So I started my own business, and I thought that I would be successful, but there's always doubt in the back of your mind, regardless of what you do. And I was no different when I started my firm. And I think the way that I got around that initially was I overplanned. I analyzed every little detail. I projected out every single number you could ever project out. I had best case scenario, worst case scenario on an Excel spreadsheet that went out like 7 years. And I thought, okay, if this happens, this is our family's finances, we're going to be okay. Even if this happens, we're going to make it by. If I get to this point, it doesn't materialize, I could still transition and I only lose out on this from a financial perspective. So to make the decision to get up and running, it was a lot of planning focused. And then once you start something, you could probably attest to this. Once you start, a lot of that planning goes out the window because now you're in the deep end, right? You left your previous job, you started your firm. Now it's you by yourself, hoping that what you anticipated happens actually happens. And that's where a lot of faith has to come in. You have to believe that if it was meant to be, if there are higher powers working in your favor, and you believe in your heart that you can make it happen, it's going to work. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be smooth sailing because bad things always happen. And maybe it's not going to work out in a way that you anticipated, but in the end, you're going to get to where you're supposed to be. And if you have that belief and you can continue to move forward and keep providing that belief to your conscious mind over and over and over again, good things start to happen. That flywheel starts to spin. And then just the compounding power of that momentum continues to build. And before you know it, you're 3, 4 years ahead, and you look back and you go, wow, I accomplished way more than I ever thought. And then
I
you look
love
back
that.
and you go, I accomplished way more than I ever thought, but all the reasons why I thought I was going to be successful didn't turn out to be the driving factors of my success, which is wild.
I love that. No, that's perfect. I mean, that's I look back at like I'm gonna take one example, like PGX Ally. I look back at why I started that and what I thought it was gonna look like to what it looks like now as I'm launching like the final iterate or the final full first iteration, we should say. And it's like I couldn't have planned that. I couldn't have done that, right? Um, I love that. How did so you kind of brought in the desire and the faith and almost the auto suggestion all in like kind of one foul swoop. I love that. Go a little bit more onto the auto suggestion piece where it's like you brought in the subconscious part on telling yourself that. Do you remember having to do that as you were building?
I actually didn't do that while I was building. I came across other content and people talking about the conscious and subconscious mind. And then I read a couple books like Think and Go Rich, and I go, this kind of makes sense. Where our entire life, our subconscious mind, by the time I think we're 30 or 32, I think the statistic is 90% of our decisions are made through the subconscious mind. Essentially, we're all on autopilot, right? Because of what we've experienced up to that point and what we've learned via societies that we grew up in,
Yeah.
we make decisions based off of that. And a lot of those decisions that we make, or a lot of those decisions that come from the subconscious mind, are fight or flight decisions. It's how do I survive? And a lot of those reactionary fight or flight decisions aren't necessarily great decisions to make when you're trying to get ahead in life or do better. Because there's a difference between trying to maximize moving forward compared to just trying to survive and keep your head above water. And your perspective on where you make decisions moving forward, considering those two outlooks, will determine your future, in my opinion. So it takes a lot to condition the conscious mind to make decisions proactively while keeping the subconscious mind out of it until it has been conditioned itself to act in a way that is beneficial to your long-term future goals. And when I learned that, I was like, God, that's kooky. That makes no sense. And then you start looking around and you really start paying attention to how you make decisions and how other people make decisions and how you look at life. And it just proved over and over again how big of an influence the subconscious mind and how you think about things really dictate your future. And it became really, really exciting and empowering knowing that you can change the way your mind thinks. And if you can change the way your mind thinks and reacts, either at a conscious or subconscious level, it is going to make a significant difference long term, moving forward, personally and professionally.
I love that. That is amazing. I let's go. Let's camp on that one a little bit because it's almost like you're renewing your mind. You know, Romans 12:2 or is it 2:12 comes to mind. You know, renewing your mind, renewing your mind. Like because you said at 32 is pretty much developed and that's it after that. Well, it's like wait a second, I made so many bad decisions up until 32, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can't be my autopilot anymore. But it's like I've had really a transformation from starting at probably 38 to 44 now. Yeah. Put on 38, 39 is where I started going through this. And it was like, you know, rewriting that subconscious mind. And I'm really I've done that just really through scripture and my faith and that's been the most of mine. And that's why we're talking today is like I would have never thought about reading a book like this. This would have sounded crazy to me, right? But now all like these decisions I make going forward, like I'm not reacting the way I used to react before,
Well,
right?
absolutely. And scripture is a perfect place to start, in my opinion, to try to reorganize what's going on in the subconscious mind because it calls out and it forces you to really look at why you believe in the things that you believe or why you do the things you do, right?
Yeah.
And you could go through scripture, you could go through the Bible just in general and read stuff and relate it to what's going on in your life. And it really makes you think about why you look at things the way you do and why you make decisions the way you do, which is exactly how you instill that auto suggestion or you instill that different set of beliefs in your subconscious, which ultimately is going to provide for a brand new, different future than the track you're already on or compared to the track you're on currently. But again, it's interesting because it's not something you could change tomorrow and see instant results at all.
No.
It, I think it takes a long time. It's not linear, and it doesn't provide positive reinforcement day after day after day. You have to have a lot of faith, and you have to have a lot of determination in what you're doing is going to pay off in the long run. When it comes to reconditioning your brain and how you think about stuff, it's really difficult to do, which is why having something like scripture to fall back on and to follow becomes very, very helpful. Because people, I think, have been trying to do this and have been successfully doing it for a long, long time. And hearing those words of wisdom and those stories in the Bible really help.
That's great. That's great wisdom right there. Great advice. I think, yeah. Gosh, you know this, Derek. I'm not, like all of a sudden these conversations are funny because I'm like, wait a second, like that is good. I got to think about that for a while before I even respond because that was really good.
It's again, it's everybody. I think most people would be surprised at what comes from their brain if they just give themselves a minute to just peacefully think and reflect.
Yeah.
And the best tool in the world to help people do that is scripture. It's the Bible. It's the written word. It just brings a different perspective to what you're experiencing in life, which is what you need to trip that subconscious autopilot in your brain.
Yeah.
And to move more of your focus to the conscious side so you can make proactive, beneficial decisions for your future instead of just those subconscious decisions that have been implanted in your brain over the last 30 plus years that have led you up to this point of you wanting to make a change, which isn't where you want to go.
Yeah. How
and I have to say too, if I sound like I know what I'm talking about, I don't. This is just learnings that I have had reading a book like this and trying it myself. So if I sound like a kook, great. I am probably doing a disservice on how it works and the power of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But this is just my personal experience on it.
No, I mean this is such a deep book. It's hard. I mean, we're probably gonna have to do multiple sessions on this book by itself because there's, I think there's like 14, 15 chapters where every chapter is like itself is its own little session, right?
Mm-hmm.
But man, I think that's really great what you said. How do you think, especially in today's world, going back to scripture, how important is that just to keep yourself from going down those rabbit holes? Because I mean, like this last since Trump took office, it's been pretty volatile on the stock side. I'm guessing. I'm not. I know it's been up and down, but like what since the news of the tariffs, like it hasn't in your world, has it been kind of scary for people, or are they people? I know your advice is always just keep calm and carry on, but I don't know, like people could go down these rabbit holes when they don't have something to fall back on like scripture, and maybe it might be a little bit more scary for them.
Well, absolutely. I think it becomes a lot more scary for people when they don't have guardrails in place to be able to contextualize how what is happening currently is going to affect things they actually care about long term. I have many clients, like if they're retired and the tariff news comes out like in April and the stock market starts to drop quite significantly and there's volatility that they haven't experienced in a couple of years, and now all of a sudden this retirement nest egg that they carefully been building starts to shrink and they watch with a helpless feeling, it can be pretty irritating and unnerving watching that happen.
Yeah.
But if you can take a step back and go, okay, God has blessed me with all of this opportunity. Even if the stock market does take a step back, I'm still going to be able to live the life I want. And my life and happiness and joy is not tied to the value of my account, although very, very important. You can start separating the emotions of what's going on from a financial aspect from what goes on from a faith, belief, and future focus standpoint, and internally what makes you happy standpoint. And I know again there's a lot of overlap when it comes to that, but when you can separate your happiness and your vision from your finances, all of a sudden the stress, the anxiety, and the uncertainty that comes with that isn't so prevalent in your life when you're able to do that. And one of the great ways to do that is to have focus on things that are bigger and grander than just money in general. The other way to do that, in my opinion, is to have a great financial plan in place. So that's where my profession comes in and provides a tremendous amount of value. It can tell human, you in your future are not completely reliant on what's going on with the economic world today. I know it's going to impact you, but if I can show you that it's not going to impact you as negatively as you think it's going to be, or on the flip side as positively when things are going well, that you are pretty set in this lane and this is the lane you want to be in for the rest of your life, and we can manage that, all of a sudden the things that happen day to day to day in the economic standpoint that could affect their money up or down doesn't seem so important because it's not truly causing a huge problem, or it's not derailing their long-term vision of success. Planning can help with that when it comes to your finances, and just having a belief in yourself and a belief in a higher being that ultimately is going to control where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
Help separate yourself, your value, and your joy from the finances that are also important, but not as relevant to the other stuff we talked about.
Okay. I mean, that goes back into the book. I think it's chapter 7, where it's organized planning, right? Where Napoleon writes about the crystallization of desire into action, right? That's the key lesson there is that plan turns dreams into results.
Mm-hmm.
So, and maybe that wasn't the best example from the financial perspective, but maybe it is, and help us kind of tie those two together, because that's where, for me, I'm like, a lot of times it's all gas and no brakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe my plans aren't as well thought out as they should be.
Yeah, and again, that's where planning, or having a plan in place, a proactive plan that you can monitor, adjust, and iterate on, becomes really, really important, because it essentially is a baseline for you to make the next decision off of, right? And it's a baseline you can use to compare the general direction you're going from a previous point in time. So if you're really getting off track, you can go back and go, okay, yes, I'm off track. Here are the reasons why, and recover. So planning becomes really, really important, because it gives you a runway that you can then take off on with a strong set of beliefs that it's going to work out based off of all the planning and thoughts and assumptions we put into it. So I think it makes it easier to believe in yourself and believe in the success of your future when you have a plan in place. And then as you're moving toward that future goal, that plan can show you whether you're on track, whether you've swerving off, why you are off track, if you are off track, and help you make other iterative decisions moving forward that could impact the future that you're attempting to pursue. But overall, having a plan in place, and then having a belief in yourself and a belief in that plan and a belief in the world that it is meant to be, all those things together create all of that power in the subconscious mind, I think, that is going to provide the ultimate benefit in you reaching your goals or not long term.
Love it. Yes, no, that's amazing, Derek. And kind of on that note, when you I'm glad you brought it back to like kind of how it's all like together, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you start talking about that, and then kind of, like for me, there's a chapter in the book that talks about specialized knowledge, right? And that's from like the personal experiences or observations where knowledge, and this is where you've heard it wrong for so long. Knowledge isn't power, but applied knowledge is, right? So,
Absolutely.
I may have a lot of knowledge to apply to something that I'm doing, but I think this is where I get kind of, can you combine the specialized knowledge with the mastermind, right? Because I don't have the financial knowledge you have, but guess what? If I ask you these questions and then we can work together on something, that's where that specialized knowledge will come into play. Your specialized knowledge through the mastermind, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just, and I think that applies to any any corner of the world, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't know everything the way you need to know in order to be successful at it. It's why any entrepreneur, CFO hires, or a CEO hires a CFO or a COO, right? You are good at your lane. You're good at starting something, getting that momentum going, creating and growing, but all of the other things that come along with that will determine how great your success is or not, will have to depend on other people and their specialty to be able to step in and serve in that specific capacity for the overall benefit. And the same thing applies. And that's why, again, that's why people hire me. They go, hey, Derek, I know where I want to go. I'm not quite sure how to get there. I think I'm on the right track. I know what I want it to look like, and I know what I'm willing to give up or change in order to get there. I need you to help me make the specific focus decisions in real time when they come across my plate to maximize the opportunity or chance of me getting to where I'm wanting to go. I don't know how to make those decisions on my own because they're pretty technical. You understand the technical side of stuff really, really well. I understand the global, the vision. Together ultimately is the optimal way in order to pursue what I'm going after, which is the power of specialization. And again, that applies to any sector of the world, in my opinion, not just finances.
Yeah, no, agreed there. I think that's it. I mean, it's also important to think about where, I mean, this is the lesson I need to take myself, right? And it's hard too in like the startup world where it's like, okay, that's where you need to be creative, and that's where you need to have partners within that mastermind who see the bigger vision and who see the things that you could possibly do together that
Mm-hmm.
might want to put in a little bit of sweat equity with you, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then I guess with that you kind of get more that and it's almost like that. I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but talk about like the mind and where your imagination comes in, and to make that like the creating those new ideas or the solutions that from a financial perspective, or maybe even from your experience when you were growing your business.
Yeah. So again, the mind is very, very powerful that you have to be able to imagine with a lot of clarity your future desired state. So if you want to be successful doing X, you have to really imagine what life is like as a person who is successful at doing X. What's it look like every day? What does it mean? Why is that going to make you happy? And every day, if you can think about that future state, it's going to allow your subconscious mind, whether you know it or not, to start help you make decisions today in order to get there. Which again sounds crazy because there's you can't like say there's science back behind it. Maybe there is, maybe there's neuroscience behind that, but the subconscious mind plays such, in my opinion, plays such a crucial role that we have to condition it to work in our favor. And the way to do that is we have to tell it what we want our future state to be. So belief and faith in visualizing that this is what it's going to look like when I finally get there is important before you actually get there, because it's going to condition the subconscious mind to make decisions that are going to allow you to take those steps and accomplish your long-term goal. And I can't say that again, it's not linear. It's not like, okay, you can start thinking about it today and then tomorrow you're going to see a little bit of
Yeah.
benefit. And the next day you're going to see a little bit more benefit. You might do it for a year and nothing might happen.
Yeah.
But that's okay because it's really hard to quantify, especially early, because it's a subconscious mind you're trying to recondition. And there is not realistic data points that you can go back and say, hey, I made this improvement when it comes to subconscious mind.
It's wild.
But over a long enough period of time, in my opinion, if you do it right, if you put in the work to do that visualization, if you have the belief in the faith of you actually accomplishing what you want in the long term, slowly but surely you will start making different decisions. And those different decisions will be made from the subconscious mind that you have reconditioned. And that over time is what gets you to your desired state. And then you throw a little bit of planning on there to help you make real world decisions and iterate just a little bit better. The world is your oyster at that point. And that is what I think is at the heart of Think and Grow Rich with Napoleon Hill. It's you have to believe it. You have to harness the power of the mind. It's extremely hard to do. And that's where things like meditation come into play, or things like positive affirmations. Again, years ago, I would have looked at that and said, well, that's kind of kooky. There's no way that makes sense. But the more you think about it, the more you apply it to your own life, there is a lot of merit behind it. And then you do the research and realize that the subconscious mind controls 90% of your action, and your action is specifically what determines your desired future. You can see how those two things linked make such a giant difference long term.
So good, Derek. So good. And I think it's important to reiterate what you stated. This isn't today, this isn't tomorrow. This takes time, right? This
Yeah,
takes time.
you're creating a new you.
Yeah.
And it's not going to show up tomorrow. Like we said, it may never show up, but that's where faith comes in, right?
Yeah.
Faith is believing that it's going to work out, regardless of how well or how bad it looks today. It's going to work out if you keep showing up and putting the right type of work in, and that reconditioning the subconscious mind, having beliefs and the auto suggestion that's talked about a lot in Napoleon Hill's book, really can influence positively your future state of being. And again, I am probably doing a terrible job of explaining it. Because again, this is new to me. I haven't been studying this for years. There's probably other people who could say it a lot more eloquently than I can. But if you're watching this, just know I think it does make a big difference long term. And there have been plenty of studies, there have been plenty of successful people, even successful people in the book, who back that up.
Yeah, no, it's
But it's
awesome.
not binary. There's no ones and zeros that you can say, hey, I took this step, so I'm going to expect a benefit tomorrow to equal that same type of effort. It doesn't work that way. But what in life does?
Indeed. No, I think there's a lot more that we could unpack in this, Derek, and it's more, like I said, more than one episode. But I think you dropped a lot of great insights here that can really, if applied right, it can make a difference in people's lives.
A lot of the insights in that book too, Sean, are very, very similar, if not the same, to biblical principles as well.
Yeah, I actually did I like this one. Then I pulled in. There's a biblical companion book to it. That goes through this book from more and it has a lot of Bible verses tied to it, which I really enjoy. I forget who it's by. I'll put the link in the notes. So, but yeah, I mean, this is one of those things too, where it goes back to, I think, really stewarding our resources well, knowing that, you said time, talent, and treasure, right? I think that's really important. That's the only three things we can steward at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important that we grow in our mind and grow in our knowledge so we can do a better job at stewarding those, right? Fascinating stuff, Derek.
Absolutely. And then answering the question of why you're stewarding it to begin with. Like, what is that ultimate desired state that you're doing this all for? And then visualizing yourself there over and over and over again. And again, conditioning that subconscious mind to help you get there more efficiently, faster, or better.
That's great. Love it, Derek. Well, thank you so much for your time. We'll be seeing you again shortly. We have a lot more to talk about in regards to finance, because we need a lot of help in this spot, and you can help us.
Perfect. Well, I thank you for the opportunity for the conversation today, and I look forward to many more to come.
All right, Derek. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.